Okay, let's take a look at the 1-4-1-4-1 formation. So if we do not include the goalkeeper, of course, that is just a 4-1-4-1. So first we're going to go over the players and the player positions that we see here. And we have a line of four, a back line of four, left back, left center back, right back. Okay, and the unique part of this formation is that we have a center defensive midfielder that is there to essentially occupy that space between the center backs and the midfielders, but more so to support the left center back and the right center back, so that the left back and the right back have a little bit more freedom to push up, okay, along with the left midfielder and the right midfielder. Okay. So now if we take a look at the same positioning but with using the numbering system, our goalkeepers are number 1, left back number 3, right back number 2, center backs 5 and 4, and that center defensive midfielder is our number 6. And then we have the 8 and 10 in the midfield, and then on the outsides we have our 11, 7, and on top we have our striker, our number 9. Okay, so depending on the players that you have, if you have, let's say, a number 10 that is a little bit more dominant with their left foot, then you can have that player on the left. Or if your tactic is for that player to approach from the right so that they can be involved in more shots with their left foot, then you would keep that number 10 on that right side. But you can essentially switch these two players. Okay, let's take a look at some typical movements. So here we have the movements, and with these movements, you can see that there is definitely a lot of the field is covered with this formation, which makes it very, very popular with teams that like to connect, just because you can already tell how there's so many movements that are possible in which players do not get in each other's way, but more so support each other. And the movements of the center defensive midfielder in this situation is quite important. Okay, so now we're going to go into the defense, and here you can tell that we have 4 lines of defense, and essentially our lone striker is the person that initiates the defensive movements and the actions that we are going to take, where we're going to move, so on and so forth. So that is essentially started there. So if the player goes that way, then we shift the game to our right side, essentially making our movements and everybody sliding over to the right and left. So here we have our left back and our left midfielder pushing up, right back, right midfielder pushing up, our 8 and number 10 supporting, also pushing up, and then we have our lone striker. I didn't put any arrows here, just so that you can see that this player is essentially free to essentially move in whichever direction is necessary. So this formation is common with teams that like to keep possession. As you can see here, we have all the triangles that we can form with all the different players and all the different movements that this formation allows for us. So here we even have a diamond. If we connect with our number 9 and our number 6, we can create a diamond with our number 8 and 10. Okay, and furthermore, we can create another triangle with the goalkeeper and the center backs. Okay, so that is also a possibility there that we can do. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So if you're a team that has a lot of technical players, a lot of players that like to play starting from the back and like to build up with shorter passes, then this formation is a possibility for you. A setup with the opponents involved, And I have the ball right here, but like I mentioned earlier, our number 9 is our first line of defense. So we're going to start first with some of the actions that we would take, how we would move, where players would go, and what makes this formation so unique and different to other formations. So now, at the beginning, it seems to be very typical. So things that we can do, of course, is shift the game or steer the game to a side. So here we have our number 9 putting pressure on the left center back there and essentially making a type of movement there. Right, so here we moved in that. So as you can see here, we moved our number 9. So we moved in that direction, steering the game to our right side and their left side. Okay, and that would depend on the tactic that you're trying to implement. If it doesn't matter whether you go left or right, then you can let the striker decide. But of course, if the opponents have a weaker left back than let's say the right back, then of course we would intentionally shift the game or steer the game to that side. Okay, so now our movements are there. So we move a little bit now. All the players essentially moving from position. Okay, so now here we have a situation where we have 2 players essentially marking 1 player here. And the idea behind that is so that our number 7 and our number 10 do not get split. So if our number 7 was to essentially open up and try to cover this player man-to-man, then we have a very clear pass from the center back to the left midfielder there. Okay, that is not a pass that we want to allow. So we would essentially bring this player back and make this pass go there to our left back. Okay, that would be a lot more ideal, just because this would allow us to move our players and essentially cut passes. So we're going to get rid of these lines so that we can now see what is next. So now we are, our number 10 is covering the center midfielder and trying to anticipate a pass. Our number 7 can now have the confidence to go up because this pass is covered, and the number 7 runs in a way that it covers, that he or she covers the left midfielder, which wouldn't stress us too much because our number 2 would be there ready to anticipate that. And then we have that situation where our number 4 pushes up. Number 6 steers over, shifts over, slides over. Number 5 slides over. Their attacker would most likely slide over for a little bit of support, potentially a long ball. Then get rid of that one. And then everybody just essentially slides over. So here we have a little bit of a curve that starts from our left back, kind of curving up into our right back. And as you can see here, our number 6 is a little bit more free. Let's move our 11 a little bit so that he can be defending. Okay, so our number 6 is essentially free. They have a lot of space in this particular situation. And that is great. That is exactly what we want with that formation, is to essentially be free so that we can help or assist any players that need it, but not be too high up in it to the point that we are leaving our center backs with the 2 strikers, or depending on the formation that is used, to leave them open, to leave those 2 players open for a ball and essentially a quick transition over to our goal. So one thing that, like I mentioned earlier, is that we don't want our number 6 to be too high up or to be caught too high up, especially in transition, because like I mentioned earlier, we have 4 lines of defense, and that number 6 is essentially 1. So when we play, for example, a 4-4-2, so let's say, for example, it was a 4-4-2 formation. So then number 10 would be there with the striker. The number 6 would push up. But in a 4-4-2, you wouldn't have the lines this separated, right? The number 6 and the number 8 would essentially be a little bit farther back, essentially closing the space between the center backs and the midfielders. That space would be a lot less. Okay, but with the 4-1-4-1 formation, the number 6 is a line of its own, essentially covering that space between the center backs and the number 8 and the number 10. Okay, but with that player being too high, now this space is way too large. There's way too much space, so that if the ball happens to get behind the number 6 to one of the strikers in a transition situation, now we have and let's say our left and right back are essentially running back. So now we would be in a situation where we have a 2 versus 2 situation with our center backs. And that wouldn't be a situation that we would want, especially if the left or the right midfielder from the opponents is coming up. Then if we're caught too high up, or the number 6 is caught too high up, then we can be in some trouble there. Okay, so there's got to be a lot of discipline from the number 6. The number 6 should be assistants to the number 4 and the number 5. And one of the key roles of the number 6 is actually to be the first to step. Okay, so one of the first to step, so that essentially our center backs do not have to move up. Okay, so in a 4-4-2 formation, if the ball breaks the midfield line, so for example, if we are like this, then our one of our center backs would have to step up, and then everybody would shift like this, right? So then this is what we would have. We would have the little triangle here and the little chain following with the left back. But with the 4-1-4-1 formation, our number 6 is essentially the person that steps up first, allowing the center backs to be in a better position to defend should the ball break or get past the number 6. Okay, so then we keep a strong line here, and our center back here is actually here because we want to create a 3 versus 2 situation, whereas on this other side we have a 2 versus 1 situation, and if this player comes back, then our number 11 should be on his or her way back. Okay, so that is one of the things that we have there. In closing, one of the advantages of the 4-1-4-1 is that you cover a lot of space. You have a lot of options in the 4-1-4-1 formation to attack, so you can have up to 7 players attacking at once, and it's well suited for combination soccer. So a team that likes to combine with short passes. You are doubling up on the wings. So here we have right middle, right back, left middle, right back. So you can double up on the wings. And there's a lot of possibility of winning the second ball. So as you can see, there's a player moving in every direction, covering a lot of different spaces. So if there's a high ball, then there's a good possibility that in this formation you have the possibility of getting that second ball. So some disadvantages, of course, as we can see, is that the striker is alone. So there's a lot of running effort from the midfield players to essentially help the striker, especially in transition. There is a big possibility of danger when, like I mentioned earlier, if the ball gets behind the number 6, then there's a lot of space between there's a lot of space that the attackers can take advantage of if the number 6 gets too high up. And then after that, you would only have the center backs for safety before obviously getting in a situation where we need our goalkeeper. There's a high tactical demand as well, right? There's a lot of discipline. There's a lot of movements that need to be respected so that this formation does not get exploited. Okay, so that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.